So you have been knitting for a while and you have knitted a full square now, and that means that it is time to cast off. Good job! You are just about finished with your very first knitting project. That is very exciting. Congratulations! So today we're going to cast off, and we're also going to deal with our ends. You will need, obviously, your project and a pair of scissors, and you're also going to need a yarn needle. So something like this. It needs to be big enough that you can stick yarn through it. And that's it. Those are the 3 things that you will need today. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. So for this project, you do need a square. And my favorite way to figure out if I have a square when I'm knitting is to just fold it over. So I just fold along and I make sure that it is, in fact, a square. So if I can make a nice triangle like this, I know I'm ready to go. So as you can see, we've got our triangle and we're ready to cast off. So to cast off, we're going to get our project set up just like we would to knit. Wrap it around my finger. And then we're going to knit our first stitch. And actually for your first one, you can just slip it. That's what you've been doing so far. And then you're going to knit your second stitch. Just like that. So now we have 2 stitches on our right needle. We're going to take that farthest stitch with our needle and we're going to lift it over the other stitch. Note how I'm using my right hand to kind of hold everything together. We're over and over the tip, and we're going to leave that other stitch on our needle. It's just like that. Try that again. We knit 1 stitch, and then we take the farther needle, the farther stitch that is, sorry, and we're going to go right over. And we're going to do this the whole time. So we just knit 1 stitch, we lift the older stitch up and over, leaving us with just 1 stitch on our needle, and we will continue all the way across. All right, and here's our last stitch. Do that last one. And our last one over. And now we are down to just 1 stitch left. So at this point, we're going to cut our yarn. Now I want to have a nice, comfortable end. If you cut too short, it is much harder to work with. So give myself a bit of space here, and I'm going to cut it. And now I'm going to take this, and all I'm going to do is bring my end all the way through and pull that tight. And you have a square. Look at that. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to actually sew on our ends. So on this project, it doesn't really matter which is your front and which is your back. They should be about the same. But on yours, with it being your very first project, you may look at it and go, you know what, this side looks better, or this side looks better. So you look at yours and you decide which one you like better. And you're going to decide that that is your front and that the other is your back. We are going to sew our ends in on the back. So for this, we need to thread our needle. So what I like to do to thread my needle is I actually take it over my needle first and then I slide it, and it just gets everything all set up very nicely, and then I push it through and then I have it. So from here, I'm going to call this my back, and I'm just going to poke in through here because I just need to get it back here. Now when you're sewing in your ends, you really want to kind of follow your stitches because you want it to blend in. So on garter stitch, I'm actually going to follow 2 rows of stitch. So I'm going to come up through this loop right here, and I'm going to take this one right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this path back and forth. So I'm going to take this loop and then I'm going to go back. This was the loop I went through to begin with. And I'm going to pull this just to the same amount of snugness so that it blends in with my other loop. So just like this. Nice. We just go back and forth. We're going to do an inch or two like this. Just going back and forth between these loops. See, I'm kind of making this little path back and forth. And although you can see it if you're really looking, it blends in pretty well. So that's great because we don't really want to see our end. Now, part of this project, one of your ends is going to end up as an ear, one side, and the other side is going to be hidden up in your bunny and you're not going to notice it at all. But we still, sometimes, many times in a project, you will be able to see your ends. So you always want it to look neat and tidy. The purpose of this too is that if we have a nice long end, it is unlikely that this will fall apart later. But if we just cut it short, we don't bother weaving in our end at all, and we cut it, if that knot comes undone, which they do, we won't have anything really to work with. So I highly recommend that you sew in your ends. So we've got a pretty good amount here, so I'm going to do this one more. Now, you can actually just cut it from here. What I like to do though is I actually will take it between the two rows because we do have the row that we just made and of course the row that we knit. And if I take it in through here, that is going to be really hard to see. So that's great because that's what I want. So I'm going to pull it a little bit and then I'm going to cut that. And it's done. So now you just need to do the other one. You'll do it just the same way as you did this one. And you will have a square and it'll be all ready for sewing it together like a bunny. I'm going to show you again how to sew in your ends, but this time I'm going to show you with some white yarn so that you can really see the stitches. So first of all, I'm going to thread it. And I'm going to come in and I'm just going to follow this stitch. This is technically 2 stitches. Normally we'd pull all the way, but obviously that one is not connected. So come down. And then up, and we go back through the same one as before. We just go back and forth like this. So, see, we're just taking this along. And the more you practice, the more you'll get to the point where you can see this very easily. So even if you're struggling right now, it will get easier soon. The more you practice, the easier this gets. And you'll just keep going back and forth until you have probably about 1.5 to 2 inches. So about that far is good. And of course, you want to make sure that you do both ends the same way. And then once you've done that, you will be ready for the next class where we sew this square into a bunny. See you next time. Bye.